And while the president is in Britain, more trouble is brewing here at home. And as his pick to run the Federal Aviation Administration is in some hot water. The former Delta executive is embroiled in a legal case involving a female Delta pilot who says she was retaliated against after her reporting safety concerns to him, but he apparently failed to mention the legal case to Congress. As Drew Griffin reports, the emerging details on the case have some congregational staffers asking questions.
His resume makes him an ideal candidate to run the FAA, a former fighter pilot, nearly 30 years at Delta, and his recent confirmation hearing, senators had little more than high praise for Captain Steve Dixon.
It's an honor to appear before you today as the President.
Dixon answered questions, none difficult, and committed himself to expanding aviation safety.
I will never abdicate my responsibility and my devotion to safety.
But that is exactly what Captain Steve Dixon is accused of in a legal case that he did not report in his disclosure forms to the U.S. Senate. The case, Carleen Pettit versus Delta. The allegation, denied by the airline, that a female Delta pilot was retaliated against, accused of being mentally unstable after reporting alleged safety violations to Delta's senior vice president of flight operations, Captain Dixon.
You think there is a clear link between her reporting a safety issue and being declared by Delta mentally incompetent?
There is no doubt in my mind that there is a link.
In 2016, Carleen Pettit was concerned about safety at Delta. She called for a meeting and delivered a more than 40-page report to Dixon and his second-in-command. She felt a pilot qualification test wasn't being taken seriously, that pilots were afraid to admit they were fatigued, and that a pilot's travel time to assignment was not being properly added to calculate an hourly limit for flying.
And she wanted these safety issues addressed before some calamity occurred.
Pettit's attorney Lee Seaham said, instead, during another meeting with a supervisor, Pettit became frustrated and her eyes filled with tears. What happened next was shocking.
All she knew was 7 weeks after I reported these very serious safety issues, without explanation, I'm being sent to a psychiatrist.
That psychiatrist declared Pettit bipolar. She was grounded. And in his deposition taken just last year, Steve Dixon said he had ultimate authority over that decision and agreed with his staff's recommendation to refer Pettit for a mental evaluation. It was a sound course of action. In the end, that diagnosis was completely wrong.
Ultimately, 2 teams of psychiatrists clear Ms. Pettit and said she's fine. She's perfectly fine. She should be back in the cockpit, which is where she is today.
A year and a half after being grounded, Pettit is back flying a 777 for Delta, and she's suing the company for damages.
This was all a terrible mistake, but it was a terrible mistake that went on for a year and a half because of the lack of diligence that Captain Dixon accepted.
Delta did order a safety audit after hearing Pettit's concerns, and the FAA validated her complaint, dealing with pilot scheduling, which Delta says it had already addressed. But this is all news to the Senate Transportation Committee, who knew none of this was going on when Dixon testified. On his Senate questionnaire for nomination, Dixon didn't mention the case, but did write that Delta was involved in various judicial, administrative, or regulatory proceedings relating to its business, although I was not a named party in any such actions. Now CNN has learned committee staffers are asking for more information, more records. One Democratic committee staffer saying the omission is troubling. Drew Griffin, CNN, Atlanta.
Senate Commerce and Transportation Committee Chairman Roger Wicker released a statement saying that the new information, quote, merits further examination of Dickerson by his committee. Wicker also was asking the Department of Transportation and the White House to do the same.